Hi, Gohan, and welcome to the Tolkien Lore channel. I'm the Tolkien Geek, and in this video I want to explore some things that happen off stage in The Lord of the Rings, and we get a very brief reference to this in the story because Legolas and Gimli have a conversation both in the movie and the book, though it's slightly recontextualized in the movie, about how they wish they had some of their own, well, Gimli wishes that he had some of their own kin there as well, and Legolas says, I don't think that they would come. I don't think they have any need to ride to war, for it already marches on their own borders. So we get this reference to the idea that there's war coming not just to Minas Tirith, but also to other parts of Middle-earth. And in fact, this is the case. And we see this in the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, where we get a little bit more detail on what happens. We also got kind of a preview of this way back in the Council of Elrond in the book, because when Glowin is giving the account of what has happened at Erebor, he's talking about what presumably is a Black Rider coming and offering a dwarven ring in exchange for giving Bilbo, or at least Bilbo's ring, up in exchange. So he's trying to curry favor with the dwarves, and he basically threatens them at the end and says, if you don't do what we want, then things will get nasty. He doesn't say that in so many words, but it's implied in what he does say. So you can already tell that something's brewing as early as the Council of Elrond, and then later on we get this reference to Legolas basically pointing out, they're about to get it themselves. So let's take a look at what happens actually in the north parts of Middle-earth, far away from the main theater in Minas Tirith. First thing that we learn in the appendices is that during the period that Sauron is attacking Minas Tirith, he is also attacking Lorien from Dol Guldur, which makes sense. It's kind of his secondary stronghold, and it tells us that Lorien was attacked 3 times, but because of the power of Galadriel and her ring, as well as the valor of the elves themselves, the assaults were pushed back 3 times. And then after the shadow passed, a reference to Sauron, being destroyed with the destruction of the ring, Celeborn led the elves forth, and they actually attacked Dol Guldur, and it tells us that Galadriel threw down its walls. So if you've seen the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies, you may remember her getting all super powerful and driving Sauron out of Dol Guldur. That's not entirely out of the realm of what Galadriel could do, because apparently she can do some pretty serious damage when she has, the opportunity to do it. So that's kind of the first thing we get. Similarly, Thranduil, the king of the woodland elves in Mirkwood, also has attacks on his realm, and it tells us that he also is victorious and drives out the evil forces that were attacking him, and in fact, in doing so, he ends up pushing to the south while Celeborn is pushing from the south toward the north, and they end up meeting in the middle of Mirkwood. And as a result of this and their victory, Mirkwood is cleansed, and they rename it the Wood Under Green Leaves, and the end result is that Thranduil's realm is actually expanded to cover basically all of northern Mirkwood. Celeborn actually claims the southern part of Mirkwood for part of his realm and renames it East Lorien, which if you look at a map seems just a little odd. But the middle of it they kind of leave to the Beornings, the descendants and followers of Beorn, the shapeshifter from the Hobbit. And so the Mirkwood area is basically rendered, totally clean and healthy again, and all that ends well. Things don't go quite so well at Dale and the Lonely Mountain, however. So at the same time as all this other stuff is happening, Easterlings attack King Brand of Dale, who is the descendant of King Bard, the bowman, and he is driven back, and there is battle under the shadow of the Lonely Mountain itself, because the dwarves come out to help. Dayan Ironfoot is still king under the mountain, because dwarves are very long-lived, and they have a huge battle there, but they're driven back within the mountain itself, and they're basically holed up in a siege. Now, eventually, when the defeat of the Dark Lord becomes known, it fills the hosts of the Easterlings with dismay, and the people that are holed up in the mountain come out and rout them. Unfortunately, by the time all of that had happened, King Brand and King Day and Ironfoot had already been killed, and so their heirs are now the respective kings of their respective realms. After this happens, you get the defeat of the Easterlings, and they're routed, and then both Erebor and Dale send ambassadors to the wedding of Aragorn and Arwen, and they end up becoming kind of protectorates of Gondor and in perpetual friendship with them. So, that kind of ends on a kind of a good note, but kind of sad as well, because you do lose Day and Ironfoot, who was, kind of a hero both of not only of the Battle of Five Armies, but even much earlier in the War of the Orcs and Dwarves. So a little more bittersweet on that end, but at least it all turns out okay. Interestingly enough, going back to Celeborn and Thranduil, Celeborn, after Galadriel departs, he actually doesn't go with her. He ends up kind of abandoning his realm, and by the time this happens, there's really no elves hardly left in Lorien, and so the fact that he claimed Southern Mirkwood for as East Lorien seems almost kind of pointless, but we do get the idea that while he was there, it was, made a much more beautiful place, which makes, a lot of sense. Although not probably as beautiful as Lorien before, because by that point, the three rings were no longer effective. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and hope that kind of filled in some of the gaps in your knowledge. Like I said, this is in the appendices. It's kind of in Appendix B if you want to look it up for yourself and get a little more detail. If you did enjoy it, please do give the video a thumbs up and share it around. You can also follow me on Twitter at JRRTLore for some occasional Tolkien-related trivia questions. You can subscribe to the channel here. Don't forget that bell icon. You can support the channel over here, and you can find 2 of my previous videos here. Until the next time, I'm the Tolkien Geek, signing out for the Tolkien Lore channel. Namaste.